book. It was challenging, the first one.
Because he wanted to be in the place of love.
Somebody came up with the idea.
And he was 100% accurate in his prediction.
Selenium, iodine, or calcium, you don't have to know any of that stuff. All you have to be able to do is chew.
We'll light up this light bulb to show you.
I think they used them.
Okay, now if you go to our booth, 441, you'll see a little miniature demonstration of a little small Tesla coil with this little, but that one is a solid state one and doesn't make any noise, but it radiates a force field. This is what our physics needs to develop, a force field. It's of a force field. We'll put our mics back on and talk about that. Now, let's do another experiment and see if we can get this light to light up over here. And it always has to be grounded because we need a common reference. This is what Nikola Tesla did. He grounded everything so that the Earth is part of the system.
Yeah, the system, whole closed circuit. And this wire that he's attaching here to ground is not transmitting any of the power to that coil over there. If you want to take a look at it, you can see you've got two coils. You've got a secondary and a primary, and the wire that he's plugging in is just so that he can be grounded. Simply that.
It's just a grounding little thing. Otherwise, there's no reference between the voltages. It may work and it may not, but it works a lot better when you have a common ground as a reference.
Ready?
And you get shocked from touching any of this.
The lower part here, but not up here. You'll feel a little tingle.
But yeah, that's dangerous.
Oh yeah.
Down there, that's
Oh,
a neon transformer. Stay away from that, but it's protected.
Ready?
And we can adjust the receptivity by experimenting with different copper or brass or whatever it is up here. But as you see, there's no need to really do that. I could actually try to make them brighter, couldn't we?
Yeah, we can try. There we go. And what it amounts to is this particular coil we purchased. The second one over here was manufactured and made by one of the area students. And so they're not exactly in resonance with one another. And so as we use the different pieces of metal on the top, they essentially form an antenna to help the frequency become closer in range to one another, and therefore the bulbs light up. Ready? Let's see if it does it. We don't know.
Can you all see it? Oops, sorry.
Well, why not power plants instead of
So,
power
let us put our mics back on,
So we can talk a little bit.
and we can keep playing with this, and you'll see various brightnesses. So excuse us for a moment. We gotta
Get plugged in.
Is the primary unit powered by electricity?
Yes.
give us.
Oh.
Yeah. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
We're live, it's not memorized.
It's not gonna fly, am I?
No, it's a high frequency. It won't hurt it. Sorry. Technical glitch here.
When you watched us take the mics off earlier, it's because we became part of the circuit, essentially, by wearing the microphone. And so we were feeling it. You know, I had this part in my pocket,
And you.
I was like, wait a second, I shouldn't be feeling anything. I know what's going on here. So that's why, exactly. So that's why we took the microphones off, and then we're able to play with them without any issue.
Okay, where were we? Oh, so just like the laser, the Tesla coil is a resource, an invention that's virtually untapped. look, how much pollution were we pouring into the waterways, the ocean, and the atmosphere? This all falls under the interdimensional physics. If you read the different texts that Ernest Norman brought in, he was one of the co-founders of Unarius. He articulated all this understanding, and he was the teacher of Nikola Tesla on the inner worlds, the spiritual worlds. If you want to read about all this interdimensional physics, Kevin and I can only highlight the whole idea here, but we have a virtual untapped future of how we can have free, unpolluting, unlimited source of energy. And what we could do is set these coils to resonate at specific frequencies on top of mountains or buildings and rid cities of smog. If we could, Nikola Tesla turned these things on in a smoke-filled room, because people smoked cigars back then.
Especially his best friend, Mark Twain.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
And he cleared the room of smoke. In Colorado Springs, one morning he went out to experiment, and it was a clear morning, and he turned on his Tesla coil, and the laboratory started filling up with fog. So the science of high-frequency electronics could be used to control our weather, to make it rain on other parts of the world as having a drought. Thus, global warming doesn't have to be staring us as some ogre right now, or whatever you want to, which side of the fence you're on. Whatever the turmoil in the weather is, we don't have to be battered around by it. Other physicists, other planets, and other solar systems already use this technology. For example, other planets have a central generating station, and they put it underground, and they just have a beam, a laser-like beam of energy, and on the houses and the buildings, they just have like a split ball antenna to receive the beam. And the beam is such a high frequency, it will not hurt any planes or birds or geese or whatever is flying, and the energy gets stepped down. Now the Tesla coil is not itself developed for energy generation. We're just showing you the principle. And so Nikola Tesla was a discoverer of what? New knowledge that our scientists never really had before. So his job was to help move the people here, humanity, forward and plant the seeds of a new physics that I call interdimensional physics or high-frequency electronics.
And as an aside, one of the things that Tesla said when he was here, and I found was fascinating because we're coming back around to that knowledge again. One of his good friends was Lord Kelvin, who was a physicist from England. And when he met with Kelvin and they were discussing the environment at that time, they talked about how foolish it was to pollute the atmosphere. And they said this idea of using coal for energy was incredibly polluting. The idea of automobiles was obscene because of the way they polluted the environment, and that what we should be doing was developing solar power and using the poles for electricity until he developed his Tesla coil. So, 100 years ago, they were having this discussion that we're coming back around to now. It's taken us 100 years to get to the point where we realize that polluting the environment is a disaster, So, I guess it's taken humanity 100 years to recognize what we should have known all along, that what we do to our planet, we're doing to ourselves.
Right, and it's our job, as we increase our spiritual knowledge, to take care of planet Earth. It has consciousness. It breathes, it pulses, because it's part of the infinite cosmos. As Jesus said, everything is alive, there's nothing dead. Everything is pulsing with the pulse of creation. The heart of every atom is pulsing with this intelligence, which is what we call infinite intelligence. Everything, we're all connected together. Every one of us on this planet are connected by the law of harmonic regeneration. And that is brought into by Ernest Norman, and there's many different textbooks. So, Nikola Tesla had a vision, did he not? Any of you have read him. We're here as Unarians to extend and continue that vision, because we don't have to be put in a situation where we lack enough energy, electricity, etc., to power our world. And look at what China's doing. They're polluting the heck out of their atmosphere. Is it going to come over to us? Of course. Yeah. So we have the technology. It's virtually untapped. Now, it may not, the negative forces may be too strong right now to allow this to be developed, but eventually it'll be developed. It has to be, because there is a new age coming into planet Earth. It's just at the beginning stages. You hear your sons and daughters, your nephews, you tell them about all this stuff, and they will become the what? The future teachers, leaders, philosophers, congresspeople. They're the ones who are going to bring about the new age. It takes work. It can't happen all by itself. And then when we get to a certain level, extraterrestrials will come and visit us in their spacecraft and help us build all this technology. But spiritually, we have to get to the point where what? We use it properly and not hurt people with it. This is the same physics that existed in Atlantis. Atlantis sank 12,000 BC because the generating station that was there was interrupted, and the whole power tower blew apart, and it caused the whole continent, what was left of it, to sink overnight. So when you understand all this physics of what we're talking about, interdimensional perspective, all these mysteries you see around our world are easily cleared up. So one of the things we could do with future physics, like I'm talking about, is tune into the frequency of certain viruses. And we can destroy them by tuning into the frequency, and we interject an out-of-phase waveform. We can control the weather using crystallography. We need to marry crystallography with Tesla high-frequency energy so we can isolate and control various frequencies, because this is all over the spectrum. This generates many different harmonics.
That's replacing nature with man.
Well, no, that's a good
It's working
point.
in harmony with
Yeah.
It doesn't seem
You
that
see-
way to me if you're going to kill viruses or what have you.
Well, negative viruses, there are positive ones, but you see, this is another good point you just brought up. Nikola Tesla's physics works in harmony with nature. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, that's the whole point, is that if you are using a frequency to put out a phase of virus, you're not working against the constructiveness of life itself. You're actually working in conjunction with that life force, and the person who's getting that information also is getting a lesson as to why that virus happened with them. This is some of the things that Unarius teaches, is not that when you get a virus, when you get a cancer, when you get some disease, it's not just God looking down on you and saying, shame on you for something I'm not going to tell you about. There's a reason for it. You have had experiences in some past life that formed a psychic shock within your energy body that's now manifesting in the present. So in our future, what we're going to be doing is healing the whole person, not just the physical. We're not just going to look at each one of us as a physical creature where we're going to cut out something that's bad. We're going to look at us as a whole unit. That energy body, the psychic anatomy, those experiences from past lives, and the physical body. So that you're going to be putting these viruses out of phase along with the person understanding why, what was the lesson that soul had to learn, and what he was trying to, or she was trying to develop in the process of going through that disease. You know? And through that process and that awareness, then you become a better person, and you're able to share that higher intelligence with other people that you meet as well. So our future isn't just limited physically. It's going to be an infinite potential for each and every one of us that's going to be expanding as we understand how this interdimensional science works.
Well, Nikola Tesla had a developed higher self. Anybody here know what the higher self means?
10 minutes?
Okay. So let's open it up to questions, because you can come to our booth to follow up, but the questions are really good.
The tower that he built and J.P. Morgan, stopped the price.
Right.
Now, that was a long, long time ago, relatively speaking. And the knowledge is here. You have it on the table in front of us. Why doesn't some large corporation pick the government? Why don't you go see our president? He's talking about...
Because their infrastructure is embedded with petroleum industry, and they do not want to see this change. There's different reasons why. But like Kevin intimated, I doubt very seriously if it's going to come from that level. It's going to come from us demanding the future leadership be spiritually motivated. Not religious necessarily, but demand our future leaders bring in this technology.
Why do you think we haven't had electric cars? You know, they weren't making the companies money. And so it took all of us to finally say, hey, we're tired of this. We don't want to pollute our environment anymore, and we're not going to buy something until you develop it. And guess what happened? Oh, well, we can make hybrids now. You know, the technology has been around for a long, long time.
Look, it's quite. It may be that planet Earth will be backed into a corner with its energy before it'll open up to this. Other questions, please. Yes.
30 years ago, I visited you out in El Cajon. Are you still there?
Yes,
we are.
Yes, that's our central headquarters.
So you've always been tied to the Tesla technology. That was the origin of your knowledge?
Well, since its inception in 1954, one of the co-founders, or the main founder of Unarius, Ernest L. Norman, he understood and recognized the genius of Tesla and talked about who he was as a spiritual being since Unarius began. So yes, we've been talking about Tesla and communicating to people about who Tesla was, not only the physical scientist, but more importantly, who the spiritual being is behind that information since Unarius' inception. And I can honestly say that it isn't until right about now are we beginning to see people recognize the genius of Tesla again. You know, and being talked about, and being talked about in classrooms.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let's try to
I had another question, if I might, though.
We're going to try to get a lot of questions.
Okay. With the resistance to change there, can you speak, if you know, about you talk about the help from Space Brothers, etc., the gates of Armenti and what's going on between now and 2012?
Oh, no, it'll be a gradual build-up. We don't see any abrupt change in 2012.
no cataclysm.
No, it's going to be a gradual positive progressiveness. And how slow it will come or how fast it will come is up to who? Us!
That's really what it comes down
But
to.
I see the forces arrayed against, when you talk about oil companies, the government, and et cetera, this is creating more and more momentum, a sort of an Armageddon effect here.
Well, as a light worker, as a positive soul, you cannot be overly obsessed or focused on the negative part of it. You've got to focus on what?
The
You're positive.
Yes.
Look at the life of Nikola Tesla. Read about him. That's what he did. He could have gone off and got all finger-pointing and blaming, but he didn't. He stayed focused on his positive part of the mission. Yes, sir?
Do you believe in tachyons, like fast-light particles?
That's a part of the New Age physics, yes.
Do you believe in that?
I don't think it was discovered at that time.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, you said that you can destroy viruses. Is that similar to what Royal Rife was doing?
Yes, absolutely.
Very much. He didn't get treated very politely either.
No.
But these souls who come here, they know that. They are strong souls. They come here as post hole diggers for the benefit of all of us. They know they're going to get scratched in the weeds and the brambles and whatever. Other questions? Yes.
Just quickly, I'm sorry. How much energy does this machine require, electricity, these towers? And second of all, is it like the digital signals that affect, bees and stuff? How's it that?
No, it will not adversely affect any life forms. In fact, any planes that fly into the beams will be, just gently bounced off. So let me finish describing the power tower that we talked about in the future that will stand 2,000 feet high. What it's going to do is project coherent beams of energy. The waveforms are all coherent in phase like a laser, and they will go through the Earth or wherever it needs to go to major cities. He'll have a major step-down tower to reverse the oscillation process, to step it down from a high frequency to a low frequency. So it's so high frequency, it will go right through the planet Earth, and it will send out these coherent beams. Plus, we'll be able to utilize this coherent beams when we beam it to other planets to facilitate the communication that will happen between other planets and us. Other questions? Now, this is advanced. This is futuristic visions we're laying out here.
What is your understanding of what was different about Nikola Tesla the man that let him get this type of inspiration for functional electronic apparatus, which is different from the sort of material that comes through most channelers? Most channelers get poetic content or about self-development or things like that. What was he doing? Was it a practice that he had? Was it something innate about how his brain was organized that led it, different brain agencies?
Good question. No, it has
neurotransmitters?
nothing to do with his brain. He had to develop superconsciousness. This is what Unarius teaches, how you can develop your own superconscious, your own higher self, and become a receiver. Maybe you'll be an artist, a composer, a musician, an engineer, who knows what. It's unlimited. But he had such an advanced higher self, or superconsciousness, that he downloaded these inventions that he created in another dimension. We call Eros, the spiritual planet that he came from. They were all created there. In fact, all these inventions were all created in a spiritual realm, and they're just downloaded by the scientists who come here. They don't understand this process. That's why Unarius is here to explain it. All these things have been invented. So his mind was like a receiver. It was so finely tuned over many positive lifetimes, over and over again, living many positive lifetimes. He fine-tuned his conscience so he could be a perfect receiver. And a lot of things he received were not quite ready for development because they would be too harmful. They would be like sharp knives in babies' hands. So he purposely didn't develop them, but he knew they were for the future.
That's what he said. The
Yeah,
future's mine.
That's
Exactly.
right, exactly.
And a lot of the scientists of the future are going to understand how to go back to his patents and develop them for our future needs.
And it's very important to realize that, again, as we were speaking about and David was saying, is there was a tremendous mission set forward by these higher angelic forces.
Yes.
And this is where the New Age is coming about. Tesla was one of these advanced luminaries. So he set it up to incarnate to our world, to bring through all this information, to bring through these positive devices. And as was said, he knew that some of them were for our future, because we weren't advanced enough to get what he was attempting to do.
And that's what Unarius is here for. All the books of Unarius is here to get our consciousness up to a level where we'll be in a rapport and we understand all these things about the interdimensional physics. He had a strange part of himself, but our focus is mainly on what he channeled here. And he was an incredible soul who was very positively motivated.
He lived in this hotel.
He did for the last 10 years of his life.
Yeah, I forgot
Did you
all
work with
about
Albert
that.
Einstein?
That's crazy.
Did you work with Albert Einstein?
No, they knew each other, but they had two different paths. That's a good point. Now the problem with energy, getting energy from atoms, is that they split them or they try to do fusion. And there is a side effect to that called what? Radioactivity. That generates a second unseen harmonic. I'll repeat that. That generates a secondary, undetected harmonic that is poisoning our planet. My opinion is one of the causes of the ozone hole. But I haven't yet.
Is atomic power.
Yes, it's not the right way to do it because
It's not in harmony with the universe.
Exactly.
You're
If it-
producing all this poison.
if it was in harmony with the universe, it wouldn't have this third result as a poison that we have to figure out how to deal with it. And they were going to put it in Yucca Mountain, but they've put that plans on hold because President Obama said no to that plan.
There's just recent, actually, like maybe 1 minute.
And they're going on to fusion because they don't understand how the sun works. The sun takes energy from the fourth dimension, steps it down to the third dimension, and then it redistributes it in an electronic form. So planet Earth gets its energy through induction. This is a different physics, folks. It's a new paradigm that we're introducing here. If you're open to this, if this excites you like it did me when I was 20-some years old and I joined Unarius, you'll pursue and read one of our books to see if it resonates with you.
Yeah, well, what's that?
441.
441?
Yes.
That's what's that in the upstairs?
No, it's the second
Second floor.
floor in the grand ballroom at the very far back.
We're almost out of time, but
So the sun is a fusion reactor?
no.
It's a
The
fission.
process of fusion is explained by Ernest Norman in his little booklet called Atoms and Astronauts. It's part of a book called Tempest Interludium, Volume 1. He explains how energy from an atom transmutes to a higher level, and the energy goes to a helium and up to the uranium atom. So the energy that supports the atom is in a state of evolution. It's a continuum, see, it's a cosmic continuum that he talks about. That's the proper way to understand the sun. So if you know the sun is broadcasting energy in high frequency, all you need to do is develop a harmonic receiver and tune into that frequency, and this is what we're talking about.
That's what the power tower of the future will be doing.
Yes.
It's taking, essentially, it's going to be operating on the same principles as the sun. It's going to be taking this interdimensional energy and bringing it into an area that we can then use, into a level that we can use for our power needs.
Very quickly.
So it's not going to require electricity to run
No.
it like this one?
No, not the power tower of the future.
In us. We have our own antenna just like that receives it.
Yeah.
So every atom, every sun, every molecule is being fed information from the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh. This is an interdimensional vortexual energy pattern. This is partially detected by our physics today, but there's a lot more that we can do. So when they try to derive energy by smashing atoms, this whole vortexual system that's connected to other dimensions is ripped apart, and all that energy comes blasting into our dimension. It adversely affects the weather on other planets. It's not positive to do this. Tesla had a different theory. His idea was to tune into these different frequency levels and extract the energy like the sun is doing. This is the terminating point of the vortex. And if you look at the cover of our main textbook called The Infinite Concept, The Cosmic Creation, there's this vortex on the outside of the book cover. And that book explains how energy is pulsing in and out.
And the sun will cool off.
No,
according to
the
this
sun will never die. It's a false astrophysics that you're learning about in colleges. It's not,
no suns will die, really.
No, it's not part of their nature to die unless the souls who are incarnated on those souls decide to go backwards in their evolution and become so corrupt and degenerated that they will not carry out a positive, more progressive evolution. Then infinite intelligence might do things to end the existence on a physical level, but those souls continue on in their health and spiritual level. Now, I think we're out of time, but
There's always a little bit more.
Lots of time.
The souls were impacted by the sun on the planets, or are you talking about
The
souls
sun
on
was
the
impacted by the souls on the planets around it.
Yeah, right.
but the
yeah.
same thing had happened in Lemuria, when the people in Lemuria, the Lemurian age that started 156,000 years ago, the people got so corrupt and degenerated in their moral makeup, infinite intelligence had to remove that civilization. So it brought a comet, a part of a nova, into our solar system. And when it came into our solar system, it was 86,000 BC, it was 4 times larger than our sun, and it scorched the Sahara Desert and the Gobi Desert, and it practically wiped out the atmosphere of Mars. But the Martians knew this was coming, and they went underground. They had 200 years to prepare. See, we have such an extraterrestrial history that our planet doesn't even hardly know about. And this is why Unarius is here, is to fill in those missing gaps.
Well, that was great.
So the sun right now is operating like this, and it's not
Now,
working by like
We'll
fusion
have
as
to,
we
let's, you and I get together on the side if you want, but we need to pass out some of our flyers, and we have coupons. If anybody interested in